We are here with Andy Wood. We're going to be talking to him a little bit here about his journey through the musical industry. I guess we'll get right into the questions unless you have anything to add. Your journey through the musical industry started at what age?
I started playing music in general when I was about 5 years old. My granddad got me started. My cousin and I grew up playing bluegrass together. I actually started playing mandolin before guitar, and he played the fiddle, and we went to all the fiddle conventions and bluegrass conventions and stuff like that as kids. So that's how I started it up.
Oh, that's cool. Was it easy or difficult to play the mandolin
I
when
mean,
you first
that's
started?
a totally loaded question, because anything that you do for the first time is really difficult. You know, I think that's the problem right now. When you look at like music in general, like it's got this really steep learning curve, right? And in today's society, everything is easily accessible and easy to pick up and get the information however you want it, because YouTube or whatever, so like when you pick up a mandolin for the first time, or a guitar or a fiddle, piano, and it's not easy, it turns a lot of people off, so it's an interesting question that you ask, because of course it's super difficult to do.
You don't have somebody there saying to you, 1 hour a day, just put 1 hour a
or
day
even if you do, like, that's the thing, is like my granddad was there, he played, and he was there to like guide my cousin and I. But even with that, the initial like learning curve to playing an instrument, especially a stringed instrument, is because when you walk over to a piano and you touch the note on the keyboard, it swings the hammer and hits the string for you, and it will always make a note, right? So if you're playing a fiddle or a guitar or a mandolin, you don't have that hammer, your fingers are the hammer. So like just getting a note is difficult, so for people that are just starting out, much less if you're that age, or if you're 10, it's like it gets really, it's just, I think you just have to be stubborn, or you have to have a grandparent or a parent being like, hey, keep doing this, Yeah.
Doesn't a mandolin though have more strings than a guitar?
Yeah, so it's strung,
right?
Yeah, it's double strung. If anybody out there has played 12-string guitars, it's double strung like that, except both strings are the exact same pitch. They're the same octave. So you have 4 sets. The tuning is in fifths. So it's like a fiddle or a violin. And you have 2G, 2D, 2A, and 2E. The tension is really high. So like when you break a string or something, it's wound really, really tight. The great thing about mandolin, though, when you're young is it's small. So the scale length, you can play a full-size mandolin or a full-size fiddle. Like my granddad didn't get us like we just played what he had, we didn't. That's how it was, my family. So
I've tried to play guitar myself, but my fingers don't move in the correct way, so I doubt
that's what I was talking about. That's the thing. That's that initial
these fingers are so short, I can't get my
urban myth.
That's what they've all said.
Well, I know somebody you could take lessons from.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So, yeah.
One question I have for you is, do you have a specific place that you find yourself most inspired, whether it's just like sitting around jamming with people or upside down on an inversion machine?
Oh, like physically a place?
Like physically, just where you go to and where you
well,
your go-to.
In general, I mean, I've got a studio in my house, so in general, I've tried to do everything I can to make that as creatively inducing, whatever you want to say, for me as possible. Like I have, of course, all the amps and guitars and software and everything to like physically do it. I've got a drum kit to where if me and my guys, Andy Campbell's one of my guys that I always work with all the time, if he wants to come over, we want to just run through some demos. There's no setup and tear down. So there's that, but also it's really important to me, I don't know about other musicians, but for me it's really important to have things in the room that take me out of music, that keep me a little bit separated, because it allows me to be a listener too, like when I'm writing, and I'm not just like, I'm doing this because it's very difficult, because it's easy, especially in guitar instrumental music, to write and record music that's difficult because you think everybody's gonna like it. The problem is it's for guitar players. So if I have these items in the room that take me out of being guitar guy. Maybe it'll kind of keep me in the real world. And those items are like my 1980s G.I. Joe collection, and
nice.
an Iron Man helmet, and Darth Vader, and like all these like different like just things that I like to collect and have, and like artwork and stuff like that. It kind of keeps me out of just only being guitar guy that plays guitar music for guitar player. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I still at the end of the day want to think that if I do a show, of course the guitar players will come out, but I'm hoping that their wives and girlfriends that come will have a good time too.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
It's not just targeted at that. So
Do you record any local bands in your studio?
I don't, not at this moment in time. I'm still in the building phases of the studio. So my first record that I'm doing there is my upcoming new instrumental record. It's my 4th solo record. But after that's done, I'm going to allow the studio to be open for bands to track guitar and bass and things like that, and demos. But it won't be a full-blown drum isolated room and stuff like that, because I'm not gonna drop $100,000 to like buy everything to do drums. Drums are a pain in the butt. That's I'll go to another studio to do your drums. We'll do guitars and bass, but that's it. But no, I'm actually
will you do producing and stuff too? with
yeah.
local bands?
I've been a session player, a studio musician for years and years, since I was 17. I got my first session here in Knoxville at Travis Wyrick's studio when I was 17 years old. It was for playing mandolin and acoustic. And since then to now, I've done a ton of sessions and hired gun work and stuff like that. So I have that experience that I think, bands may be looking for if they need some just, production experience to help them get going.
It's kind of big problem for local bands. I mean, there's a few studios around, but like pricing and everything like that. That's why Knoxville is a huge DIY community.
Well, in general, there's like I said, Mike Deering's studio is great. Travis's studio is great. There's a studio in Sevierville. Trevor Redding, his studio is really good.
Brian Voting's.
Yeah, Brian's got a great room. The thing is like it's really, if all those studios can do drums and they can do all this stuff, so they have a higher overhead. Mm-hmm. It's probably really difficult to be right above the DIY level and right below the I'm gonna go to do a record with Brian or Travis or something. So especially here, or and we're only 2 hours from Nashville, so if you wanted to go to Blackbird and you have the coin to drop, you can go and do that. I mean, it's a great place to live for studios and creating music. I think it's just
there are a lot of bands that are the in-between phase here, though, which is why I ask everybody that we interview, what do you think you can do for the scene around here to make it more cohesive? And that definitely is part of it.
I don't know. I'm definitely not going to say that come to my place. I can just do I'm going to get my record out, and if it's not a complete disaster, then we'll do another record and another record, and then by then I'll dabble with the idea of, because I feel like if somebody comes to my place, or if somebody hires me for a road gig or a session or anything, my goal is to hit a home run. And if it's not a freaking home run, then I didn't deliver. So even if it's a band that's not super signed or super famous and they're playing to 30 people, like I still want to deliver for them, because that's just like I guess my work ethic. Maybe that's my ego or whatever. It's just like I really want to kill it if I'm involved with something,
Have you had any experience with dealing with sexism on the road?
Usually I'm the sexist.
Really?
Yeah. No, I'm kidding. As the mercenary or hired gun, the artist is always looking for a certain thing, right? So they're looking for a certain demographic. They want a certain gender. They could want a certain ethnicity, right? Because they're building a show. So a lot of us as sidemen and mercenaries, we're just not offended. Like, hey man, love to have you for the gig. You're not a woman, or what, or vice versa, or whatever. You're not this, whatever I'm looking for, and it kind of helps you turn off the sexism and racism and stuff of the world. Because you're not allowed to be offended because you're not the fit based on whatever reason. You're just like, okay, I need to go find something else. So that's not to say that it doesn't exist in the industry. I'm sure it does. But it just as a session sideman kind of thing. I know that, Michael Jackson was looking for a guitarist. Before he died, obviously, when he was doing the This Is It. Was it This Is It? Was
yeah,
that
I
what
think
it was? Yeah. Orianthi was like his third or fourth female guitarist. So it's like you could be, a superhero on guitar. You'd be Eddie freaking Van Halen or whatever, but it's like you're not a woman, you're not going to get that gig. And that can work the other way. It's like if a guy is, or I hate to say a guy, if an artist is looking for a really tall, burly, flannel wearing, cowboy hat, telly player, like, and you're a woman, you're not going to get that gig. You need to find another gig that's like the artist is looking for your demos. So that was a really long answer, but I feel like that was very honest, and hopefully the internet doesn't crucify me.
You didn't offend me.
Hopefully nobody gets offended.
That's similar to acting.
Like, it's exactly like that. Like,
you show up for an audition in acting,
right.
and you don't meet the requirements of the part, then you're not going to get the part.
I mean, and if you get offended by that stuff, that's kind of thin-skinned, because like to tie a relevance to that, it's like Black Panther's coming out, right?
Yeah.
I don't want Chris Evans as Black Panther, right? I want a really awesome African-American guy to be the Black Panther. That's what it means. Thor is a Nordic Viking. If you can draw all these comparisons, it's like casting is casting, and you want the role that fits. And if you're a musician and you have a certain sound, and you're going to be on stage live, you need to have a certain look, and that look can be anything, because there's so much art out there and there's so much music, and if you don't fit a role, that's okay, because there's gonna be another role that's like your path.
Perfect for you.
Yeah, exactly. And at least that's been my experience. Now, with that said, I'll probably be bombarded in my inbox of how wrong I am, but that's okay. I feel like I'm being very transparent.
Found 100 reasons for looking her way one more time.
So my question is, what type of music got you into this career you have right now?
Oh, that's a great question. The kind of music that got me started was the kind of music that was played at home, and by home I mean like any kind of family event growing up. So, a lot of bluegrass, Bill Monroe, Flatt and Scruggs, Tony Rice Unit, Newgrass Revival, all that kind of stuff. Bela Fleck was a major influence, Jerry Douglas, and then, of course, so much classic country stuff like Ray Price, Merle Haggard. Like, those were the kind of records that I grew up on. And then it just evolved from classic country to more 90s country. Like, I was a kid during that time, so bands like Diamond Rio. I really was into this session player. His name's Brent Mason. He's my favorite guitar player. Anything that he played on, it's like Alan Jackson records, Brooks and Dunn records, anything. I love anything that Brent did in that time. And then from there, I got into the instrumental shred guys like Steve Vai, Eric Johnson, and the Dixie Dregs with Steve Morse, and then that led to jazz and Chick Corea and Charlie Parker. So it's just like it's been this like constant evolution to wherever you are. And like yesterday I was listening to Pavarotti. So I mean, I don't know, I listen to everything everywhere all the time. It's but that's the music that got me really started, was bluegrass and classic country. Yeah.
Have you played in different genres of bands?
Yeah, I played in
can you let us know which ones?
Yeah, sure. So obviously growing up, played a lot of bluegrass, and then the first step outside that was a band in East Tennessee here called Down From Up back in the day, and we did some tours with like Seven Dust and Drowning Pool and bands like that. We were kind of way more rocking, and I could run and jump, had more energy back then. But it was heavy, a lot of drop tunings and things like that. It was kind of in that scene. We would play shows, as far as other bands around the area, we would play shows with like Copper and stuff like that. So we went on tour with 10 Years. Those are great friends of ours. And the band kind of just, we were like, all right, let's all do different things, because Eric Baker went on to do singer-songwriter stuff. Matt Brewster is in film and TV now. And then I ended up doing a lot of hired gun work, and then also so much like guitar, technical shred, nerd music, like whatever you want to call it.
That's cool.
So yeah, that was the mega different thing. And then outside of that, everything I've done has been for other, like a lot of signed bands like Rascal Flatts or Locash or whoever I've been working for. So
That's pretty cool.
yeah.
So you've seen all sorts of different genres and all sorts of different kind of crowds out there. Ones that
Yeah.
are jumping in crazy down to ones that are just
from 5 to 100,000, man. The one of the coolest gigs I got to do, I was playing for Rascal Flatts, and we got to have direct support for the Rolling Stones at the Indianapolis Indy 500, the Brickyard or whatever.
Oh,
so,
cool.
Yeah, so to look out and see like 100,000 people, and then like you're opening for the Stones is kind of one of those like, what is happening kind of gigs.
Yeah.
So that was a big one. And then, you know, my gosh, I can tell you some of my favorite gigs were like we would play Blue Cats to 60 people, and we thought we were rock stars, you know. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's just kind of that retrospective where you enjoy looking back on all of it, you know.
All the chances I